What's up, you guys? Today the theme of this video is going to be all about jobs within the dietetic field, how to go about applying, as well as some of the mistakes that I made in the application process, in hopes that you yourself will not make the same mistakes that I did once it's time for you to start applying for jobs. And really, isn't the whole point of going through all of our undergrad education, all of our clinical rotations, to find a job at the other end? I'd say so. So hopefully you'll find this video both educational and enlightening, I guess, your whole process. So first, in this video, I'll talk about where to look for jobs, what online postings, kind of word of mouth ways, and then second, I'm going to talk about some of the mistakes that I made in going through the job application process. When it comes to looking for job postings online, there were a few resources I went to. However, one of the main ways that I got word of job postings or openings in the area was through my internship director. And I think it's very common for your internship director to forward you interns messages that they get through their grapevine, because granted, their network is a lot larger than yours at this point. So that was a number one way in which I caught wind of job opportunities. Second, really not anything secret here. Indeed, I found was very, very helpful for me, was pretty up to date. However, I did run into a few situations where job postings were very old or they had already filled the position, and so it was kind of a waste of time going through applications. There are other resources out there, such as Dietitian Jobs, I believe is the name of the website. You can always look at your state level government sites for state postings. You can look at usajobs.gov. That is where you will find jobs within the VA system, and that's where I did my personal internship. So I felt like I was really spinning my wheels throughout the entire job application process, and I felt like I made a few mistakes along the way, just having it being my first time going about this and not getting a whole lot of guidance from those around me, because all the other interns were in the same boat. So one of the first mistakes I felt I made was applying for jobs too early in the game. My internship ended around at the end of, gosh, I can't even remember. It's been a whirlwind of a month, but it ended at the end of June, and I believe I started applying for jobs in March, and I felt like this was way too early. So by the time March rolled around, I was not yet done with my internship, not yet a licensed registered dietitian, and what I found was that that actually created some issues when going through the job application and job search process, and really even the interview process. I remember I had one interview where the panel thought I was a dietitian the whole time, and then by the end of it they said, "So when are you going to take your test?" or "When did you take your test?" And I had to tell them my internship isn't done for a few months. So I want to kind of dispel the myth that you can successfully gain jobs without being a dietitian. I know there are instances where certain companies or institutions allow that, and they have a certain amount of time frame, like 3 months, where you are kind of granted to take your exam. However, I think that's kind of the rarity, and I think it's just easier until you wait to start applying for jobs until you're far along in the licensing and credentialing process. At least don't start applying for jobs until you're at the very tail end of your internship. So that, applying for jobs way too soon in the game, was my number one mistake that I felt I made. However, I could sort of pinpoint some other mistakes that I saw others making, and I think that that is that you should never settle for a job. Just because something comes open and it sounds good and you're feeling kind of desperate in the moment does not mean that you should settle for that job. Granted, I feel like the field is quite saturated right now, especially in the Midwest where I am, just because we have so many amazing schools that produce amazing dietitians. So it is really tough to find jobs and land that first job. However, I don't feel that that makes it okay to settle for something. So if you are really passionate about clinical, but yet this food service position comes open and you think, well, hey, that's all I can get right now, don't. Just go for something that you think you will be happy in. I remember I had an interview for a job that sounded really cool. It was doing home TPN and tube feeding, and it was using a lot of my passions. However, during the interview process, I found out that I had to cover an entire huge region of multiple states, let alone multiple cities. And I found out that I would have to drive to all of those areas in all 4 seasons, and that I would not be offered any kind of car or much compensation for the wear and tear that I would put on my personal car. And I just thought, wow, I do not want to be driving in the middle of January when there's a snowstorm coming down and I've got a deadline to make in the state across. And I just thought, I don't think this is something that I could see myself doing, and so I did not settle for it. So all in all, there are many places where you can catch wind or word of job opportunities within the field. There's a lot out there, and if you're willing to travel and move, if you don't have a spouse or a family, the opportunities become even larger for you. However, I do feel like it's important to wait until it's the right time to apply for jobs, and also just shoot for the stars and apply for things that you truly think you'd be happy doing. The interview process is a whole other animal, and I'd like to make a video on interviews if you guys would all be interested in that. However, I can give some quick tips just briefly about interviews and how to be prepared for those. I think the #1 way to be prepared, and it goes along the same theme as applying for jobs, is to always update your resume. Anything you do within the internship, keep that on your resume, keep it nice, keep it crisp, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel when it's crunch time for applying. Secondly, I think that it's important to take any and every interview opportunity that you're given, whether it's a Skype interview, if it's over the phone, or if it's a trip that you have to make across town to be there in person. Do it, because the more experience you get, the more comfortable you're going to feel in an interview, and the more natural and loose you will be. So take all opportunities, be a yes person, and hopefully this video helps, and don't forget to subscribe and comment below. Thanks, guys.